In 600 AD, most of Maya civilization collapsed nearly overnight. Large cities were abandoned and went back to jungle. For centuries, people have been speculating why this happened. Theories range from war with the Aztecs to overpopulation, drought, or even aliens. But none of those are true. And it wasn't actually that mysterious either. The solution is right there in the cities themselves. The classic Maya civilization was a remarkable one. They developed independently from the other Mesoamerican cultures, like the Aztecs, and had impressive achievements in mathematics, architecture, and art. Their calendar was remarkably accurate for its time, and their stepped pyramid temples are iconic throughout Central America, but despite being so culturally advanced, they would eventually fall into decline, abandoning their cities and entering what is known as the post-classic period. There are several reasons why the Maya were able to advance so much. They had plenty of both fresh water and fertile land. Unlike the Aztecs, they had no great enemies until the Spanish arrived, and they had abundant natural resources like timber and stone. This allowed them to develop huge cities like Tikal, Palenque, Calakmul, and Uxmal. The Maya population grew and grew and grew. By 800 AD, there were probably 7 million Maya people spread out over a large area. As their population grew, so did their appetites, and they wanted more food. But farming was difficult because their land was mostly mountainous. The Maya solved this by cutting down trees and building flat terraces into the sides of hills. But after a century or two of farming, all the soil would wash away and the terraces would become unusable. Then the Maya would cut down trees somewhere else and build new fields. More food meant more people, which led to even more pressure to cut down even more trees. While the Maya were building giant pyramids and ball courts, they were also causing serious deforestation. Deforestation caused other problems too. Without trees, there was nothing holding back the soil. So during the rainy season, rivers would overflow and flood the low-lying areas, including the cities. In the dry season, the rivers would recede, leaving behind salty deposits. The flooding, combined with the loss of fertile soil, led to crop failures. The worst part is that all this was happening at the same time as a megadrought. Megadroughts happen when an area experiences unusually long periods of drought, sometimes lasting decades. Scientists think a combination of a volcanic eruption and the El Niño weather pattern could be responsible for this megadrought. Whatever the cause, rainfall dropped dramatically across the Maya region. The drying up of the Maya lowlands is well documented. Lake Itza, a large lake in the Maya lowlands, shrank dramatically around 800 AD. Further south in the lacustrine basin, Lake Petexbatun dropped by 30 meters. This would have been devastating for the Maya, who relied on the lakes for water and food. But there's one thing that makes this really weird. All of these environmental problems should have been totally obvious to the Maya. The Maya were keen observers of the sky and kept detailed records of astronomical events. They understood that the weather patterns were changing and that there was a drought going on. The Maya also knew that they were causing environmental problems. There's evidence that as early as 400 AD, the Maya rulers were aware of how deforestation was causing soil erosion. One ruler even built a dam to try and control flooding in the city of Tikal. Despite knowing that there were problems, the Maya continued to grow their population and their cities. Why? Nobody knows for sure, but there are some theories. Some scholars think that the Maya kings kept encouraging population growth because it helped legitimize their rule. The more people living in their empire, the more powerful it seemed. Others think that the Maya just didn't understand the science behind the shifting weather patterns. Instead, they blamed it on a supernatural wrath or a change in the calendar. But whatever the reason, the Maya didn't slow down. The population climbed to an estimated 9 million around 850 AD. At this point, though, the environment could not support so many people. Famines became widespread. Cities struggled to feed their populations. Tikal, the largest and one of the oldest Maya cities, couldn't keep enough food reserves on hand. Once a year, they would receive shipments of food from their allies, but one year the shipments never arrived. Tikal fell into chaos. The king fled to a smaller city. His successor was only 12 years old when he took the throne, and he died within a few years. The end of Tikal was swift and violent. In 878 AD, a coalition of rival Maya states attacked and sacked Tikal. This marked the beginning of the end, for the classic Maya civilization. Over the next century, the population declined from 9 million to 4 million. Most of the great cities were abandoned, including Palenque, Calakmul, and Uxmal. This isn't exactly an overnight collapse. It was more like a long collapse that took a few generations. Still, the Maya collapse is one of the largest depopulation events in history. And while the Maya are gone from the Yucatan Peninsula, the Maya people certainly aren't. Today, there are around 6 million Maya spread out across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. The Maya are still a distinct cultural group and speak a language called Yucatec Maya. That's how we know the story of the Maya collapse. It comes from the Popol Vuh, a sacred book written down by Spanish missionaries and told orally by the Maya elders. The Popol Vuh tells the story of the creation of the Maya, their interactions with gods and their ancestors, the migration of the Maya people, their wars with other Mesoamerican civilizations, and finally, the collapse of the classic Maya. As you might imagine, the Maya collapse is a pretty dark tale. It's filled with natural disasters, famine, death, and destruction, but it ends on a hopeful note. After the collapse, the Maya people migrated to the lowlands of the Piton and began to rebuild their lives. Slowly but surely, they re-established trade networks, rebuilt cities, and repopulated the countryside. Over time, they recovered from the drought and turned their civilization around. Unfortunately, this happy ending didn't last very long. In 1527, the Spanish arrived and conquered the Maya. They destroyed many of the Maya cities and forced the Maya into slavery. Today, the Maya are a marginalized group in Central America. They face discrimination, poverty, and violence. But despite all this, the Maya are still alive. They still speak their ancient language, practice their ancient religion, and celebrate their ancient traditions. We can learn a lot from the Maya, both about their past and about our own. The Maya were a highly developed civilization with a deep understanding of science and mathematics. They were also deeply connected to the natural world. They saw themselves as stewards of the environment and took great care to preserve it. Unfortunately, their efforts were not enough to save them from the mega drought, but we can take lessons from their experience and apply them to our own lives. We are facing unprecedented challenges from climate change, habitat loss, and pollution. But if we learn from the Maya, we can find ways to live in harmony with nature and protect the environment for future generations. The Maya are gone, but their legacy lives on. Not only are 6 million Maya alive today, but their descendants will likely live for thousands of years. So I hope you enjoyed learning about the Maya. Hit that subscribe button to learn more about the history of Mesoamerica, and thank you for watching.